Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the By the Book podcast with Mr. By the Book, Gaston LaRue. And today, my guest is none other than Keith Miller. He is the promoter of World's Finest Wrestling, and he is here to promote his show this weekend. That will be taking place on January 28th, 2023. I will also be on the show. Keith, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to being a part of the show, wrestling Dion Freeman, defending my AIWF World Television Championship, but we can talk about that after a bit. I would like you to talk about some of the matches that will be going on and plug whatever you want to plug for World's Finest Wrestling on January 28th.
Okay, sounds good. So we decided after our last event in October, we took a little break for the holidays, that we wanted to come back with something kind of big. And we have a lot of really great tag teams on our roster. And I decided that we wanted to do a show that spotlighted the tag teams. So I came up with the tag team turmoil idea. At first it was going to be a tournament. And then I was like, let's just do 5 really awesome tag matches, throw a couple singles matches in there too. And so that's kind of where the whole concept came from. We've got the main event with Jordan Dye, our World's Finest champion. He's teaming with the junior heavyweight champion, Dylan Cole. And they're going to be wrestling Dax Knight and Jacob Rose. And that's sort of an interesting little story because Jake just had a title match with Dylan in October. And afterward, he lost because Black Cube, shenanigans. Yeah. And then, and then afterwards, Shea Solo, who had been his tag team partner and best friend for a long time, and Jordan, who was actually, they were in a group together called the Cutthroat Crew. And before that, they were in another group together called Pandemonium. So they have like a pretty long history. Came out apparently to try to chase Black Cube off and make sure Jake was okay. And they ended up jumping him and beating him up, like basically turning on their best friend. Jordan threw him in the old Bret Hart around the post, figure 4. Nice. Yeah. And then Dax came out with a chair and chased him off. And then later on that night, when Jordan defended his belt against Dax, he did make Dax tap out, but there was a lot of interference from Shea Solo. So there's definitely call for the 4 of them to go at it together collectively in this tag match. And it's pretty exciting. So that's the main event right off the bat. It's going to be killer. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. There's 4 very talented, very by the book guys, if I should so say. That'll be a very, very fantastic tag match. All 4 guys I'm very familiar with. I've wrestled all of them, so that'll be very, very incredible. Other than your main event, what other tag stuff do you got going on?
Sure. Well, the So Icy Boys, T.Y. Ice and Avery Hurst, have been kind of chasing after the Black Cube Society for the last couple months, and it just hasn't gone well. Like the first time the match got turned into a 6-man, and then somehow Dylan Cole ended up leaving with the junior heavyweight title out of a tag team title match. It was an interesting situation. And then they had a 4-way Lucha Rules, like just chaotic match with the Bruisers and the Shield Wall, as well as the Champs and Icy Boys. And Tice ended up getting pinned, but there was a chair involved and a low blow, and so finally the Icy Boys are getting the Black Cube 2-on-2. Nothing else is going to happen, but Dylan Cole represented the Black Cube during the contract signing, and he made some changes to the contract, some of which I'm not at liberty to divulge yet. And T.Y. Ice just wanted the match, so he just signed the contract. So now we don't even know what the So Icy Boys are getting into, but one thing is Dylan Cole is going to be the special guest referee, returning to his roots.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Always got to read the fine print.
I know.
Read the fine print. I read the fine print all the time because I'm Mr. By the Book and I'm a genius.
Makes sense. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the video, but I handed the contract back to TY and said, "Hey man, you might want to look that over." And he said, "Well, does it still say that we're wrestling them on the 28th?" And I said, "Yes." So he signed it. I was like, "Okay, man. I mean, that's on you at that point."
Yeah,
So
I saw the video. I tag team wrestling is kind of my second love after technical wrestling.
sure.
I love tag team wrestling, and I will be accompanied by the Tragedy Boys, who will be on the episode before you, and they will be accompanying me at World's Finest Wrestling as well. They're a fantastic tag team. Aaron
Absolutely.
Aaron Daniel Norman, who was one half of your original tag team champions, as well as Saturn Price.
Yeah, yeah. I'm I've never had Saturn Price on an event, but I'm familiar with him. And yeah, like you said, Aaron was one half of our first ever tag team champions with the Wet Dream, with Big Fish Rimbowski. And I don't know if you know the history of what happened to that tag team, but they kind of imploded.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just, and we actually never really got a resolution out of it because Fish just retired out of nowhere. So there
Yeah.
wasn't really was never really resolved. So it'll be cool to see Aaron back in World's Finest, even if he's just accompanying you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure that he and Saturn will be working for you at some point in the future. And Aaron
Absolutely.
is a phenomenal talent.
Oh man.
Aaron has been adding a lot to the Tragedy Boys, really. He joined our group back in November. Aaron is extremely talented. Part of the reason he joined the Tragedy Boys is because their implosion was a tragedy. So now we're kind of a group of guys whose pieces get lost and we pick them up together, type of
Sure.
deal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I wanted to ask, what kind of got you into being a promoter? What inspired you to be a promoter? How'd you get involved in the wrestling business in general?
Sure. Okay. So, I had a buddy who was a ring announcer,
Okay.
Vinny Ferrari. He actually referees for us now. But he drives all the way from West Virginia or Washington or Virginia or somewhere to ref for us, just because, I mean, it's what you do when you do these kinds of things together.
Right.
So yeah, but he was trading his. Okay, first of all, I don't recommend anyone to get trained the way that I did. If I knew now what I know back then, this is not the proper way to get into pro wrestling. But let me proceed. So he was trading his ring announcing for training, and then he would come to my house and train me. And if I had a video, I would put quotes around that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then I had a TV show called Indie Wrestling Spotlight back home in New York.
Okay.
And through that, I got involved in filming and doing commentary for various independent wrestling promotions in New York and Pennsylvania. One of the promoters, Don Adams, was very, very helpful. He passed away last year, right around Easter. It was a pretty big blow, man. But
Yeah.
he actually got myself and the person who was training with us into a ring twice. So we actually did some in-ring training a couple times
Okay.
on top of the stuff that we did at my house. And then there was another company that I was working for called Mega Wrestling Association
Okay.
in California, Pennsylvania. And yeah, odd, right?
Yeah.
It's near Penn Hills. But yeah, California,
Okay.
Pennsylvania. It's right outside Pittsburgh. They had TV and they were bringing up Jim Hawkins from Mason Dixon Wrestling and some workers up there to train. So we got to train with them a little bit. And basically after doing this for like 6 months, getting in a ring twice, mostly training at my house, I was going to debut in a tag team match and then a Royal Rumble later on. So I don't know how much of this I should give away. I mean, I know the doors are kind of open at this point, but I like to
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's just say in a training spot preparing for the show, I was thrown out of the ring by two other wrestlers. Vinny came running up to catch me. I bounced off his head, then hit the ring apron with my hip, and then landed directly down on my knees.
Oh.
Yeah, hurt terribly bad. Still had the tag match later on, and it went well. It was really, really fun. It was great, honestly. Like, we were on TV, and there was a pretty, MWA had TV, so we were on TV. My very first match, I was on TV. Yeah, it was awesome. I learned about cheap heat because I had a freaking MILF shirt on. And American Pie was ridiculously popular at that point. It was around 2001. So, so the crowd chanted MILF as soon as I got in the ring. I lifted my hand up in the air and then dropped it down, and they stopped. Oh my God. So it's like the most amazing thing. So I got it. I was hyped and had the match, and it was really good. They ended up canceling the Rumble because in the main event before the Rumble, a guy got injured, so they shut the show down. A lot of blood, a lot of craziness. But we're driving home, and I asked Vinny, I was like, so am I a wrestler now? And he said, did you get paid? And I said, no. And he said, then you're not a wrestler. Okay. So I was like beat to death, man, because I had hurt my knees on top of having the match, on top of getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to help do production for two TV tapings that were both 2 hours long. Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay. I get home, and like my knees were just shot, and like I already had bad knees to begin with. My knees still hurt to this day. And I was like, I'm going to talk to Don about what it takes to do this promoting stuff. And so I talked to him, and he gave me a lot of really, really good tips. Like, this was in the early days of the internet, so a lot of it was more, work with local media, make sure that you're known in the community. Like, it was a lot of the groundwork, like, that I think a lot of promoters don't do nowadays. They just throw their event up on Facebook and expect people to come. Right. And Don taught me, like, there wasn't Facebook then, so he taught me the meat and potatoes of being a promoter. Yeah. And I've always been a creative person. I've always, wanted to entertain. He gave me the meat and potatoes of being a promoter, and I ran my first event in 2008, and I loved it. I made money. Yeah. I made money on my first show. Like, imagine that, So, and I've been chasing it ever since. That's just basically it, man.
That's really great. That's really great. What was like probably the biggest challenge in like getting World's Finest Wrestling started?
Okay, so the biggest challenge, geez. So World's Finest is my fourth company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the biggest challenge with World's Finest was really finally hitting a rhythm, and finally getting people around me who I trusted. Because two of the companies absolutely 100% failed because I started them with people who I couldn't trust for one reason or another. It just is what it is.
I've heard a lot of those horror stories.
Yeah. The other one was building. The other one was building issues. Yeah. Which we've had building issues with World's Finest too. It's almost unavoidable, honestly. We were running in a church gym at one point, and despite the fact that Jordan Dye set it up for us, told them that we were a pro wrestling organization, I came in and they said the floor is cement in there. Are you guys going to be okay with that? And I said, oh yeah, we have a ring set up, and everything will be fine. They thought that we were a coaching team doing amateur wrestling coaching in their gym. Oh. Yeah. So we ran for 2 months, and we went to go for the third month, and they were like, yeah, you can't be in our building doing that.
Oh goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we shut down for like, I think it was 3 months trying to find another building. Yeah. So yeah, the building issues pop up, man. It's just crazy. And a lot of there's a lot of ego involved in all of it, honestly. Like dealing with every aspect. The craziest thing is if you get the right people involved, the wrestlers have the least amount of ego. You wouldn't think that.
Really?
But yeah, man, I treat people well, and I try to bring people in who I feel will treat everyone else well, and create like a good atmosphere.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I'm successful at it. If I'm not, I get people out. I mean, it just is what it is. But
Right. Yeah, and
like,
you've treated me super well so far, and I'm part of me asking is because for one, I've seen my trainer Eric Draven go through it. For
sure.
two, someday I want to run my own promotion. I mean, that's
Right.
kind of the dream for
Yeah.
many wrestlers,
Absolutely.
So that's part of it. Is I just wanted to ask like, what like are the biggest struggles? What are
Yeah, man. You've got to find somebody that you believe in. You can't do it yourself. You just can't. If you try, it gets so overwhelming. Like, honestly, I think I brought Damian Saint in to help with running things at this point because
I think so. Yeah.
it's starting to get overwhelming. It just does.
Yeah.
So, and I've got my partner Tevin, who is like a brother to me. So, and we go through it all together now. And it's this is the best I've felt about World's Finest since we've been running. And our
That's
second
great.
show was in 2018, which is when we started running consistently. So it's been five years, and I feel good about us now. I think 2023 is going to be a huge year for us, man. Like, I really do. So
That's great. I'm super excited to start working for you more this year as well. I was supposed to last year, and stuff came up. I mean, stuff happened, which life happens.
Personal stuff. Yeah.
So, but I'm very excited to be working with you. And you mentioned working on television earlier, and I am the AIWF World Television Champion. And
Indeed.
I have decided to defend that championship on your show January 28th against Dion Freeman. What kind of gave you the idea of bringing me in to face Dion for one, if you don't mind discussing that? And
Sure.
And also, what are you seeking out of this AIWF World Television title match? What are you kind of looking for? What are you excited the most for about the title match?
Okay. Well, Dion had a match at our last event with Big T Thomas Moore, who, for people who don't know Big T, up north, he's sort of a big deal. He was like the first New Wave Pro heavyweight champion, and he works for a lot of companies up that way. And Dion killed him. He destroyed him. Like, he beat him in I want to say it was around 3 minutes. But at the same time, I felt like the crowd wasn't all the way there with it. They weren't sure what to make of Dion. And because even though Big T is from up north, people down here know him. And it was almost like there was a shock of it, just like, so I thought I'd bring you in, and you have a pretty big personality. So
To say the least.
So I figured you could come in and get the crowd where we needed them to be, first of all. And you would be a bigger challenge for you'd be a bigger challenge for Dion, in my opinion, at this point, which is nothing against Big T.
Yeah.
But he's sort of you're on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
And he is kind of in the middle of his career, if you want to say that. I mean, so and I see it like this. Dion keeps getting better and better. He originally was only working for Mega Mondo's promotion. I can't remember what it's called, like Wrestle This or something like that. Yeah. So he was originally working just for them. And you can only get so good, just working in the same place all the time. He started branching out. He started working for more people, and he's really getting good. And he's so explosive and so strong. And I thought you could come in and find a better way to counter that than just coming straight at him, which is what Big T did, and it did not work. Don't come straight at him. I will tell you that right
Yeah.
now.
I think I'll be a good foil in that aspect, because the book obviously says so many things about wrestling bigger guys and stronger guys and how to get around them and all that stuff. I'm very technical. I'm very quick as well. So
Yeah.
Dion will really have to work around that. He'll have those challenges that I can provide for him. And also, you've mentioned that he had a really quick victory over Big T. And he's going to have to work really quick because he only has 10 minutes to get that AIWF World Television Championship off of me.
Yeah, well, I mean, he beat Big T in like 3. So, I'm not saying, I'm just saying he beat him in like three minutes.
Yeah, but like you said, I'm on the rise. I'm a bigger challenge, Keith, and I guarantee you that no matter what, I will walk out with that AIWF World Television Championship, even if he beats me after the 10 minutes, which still isn't going to happen. Even if he beats me after 10 minutes, I'm still leaving with the AIWF World Television Championship. He's going to have to fight tooth and nail and claw for it. And not to mention, Aaron and Saturn aren't going to let him get away with it that easy.
That's another aspect of it that I didn't know about until how many days ago? Yeah. You keep on springing stuff on me. But that's fine. I mean, you're springing it on him more than you're springing it on me. So,
Yeah. I talked to you about it. I'm just springing it on him.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to be a big challenge for him. And that's what we want. I mean, I think Dion needs big challenges. I think it's hard for me to call you a challenge for him. I mean, if he beats you, I think a lot of people will see it as an upset. So, yeah. I mean, you've definitely done more at this point than he has. So,
right. But I've definitely seen his stuff. I've seen him familiar with the AIWF. I believe he's worked for them some as well. So at this point in the podcast, I am going to show some promos for my upcoming matches. And then when we return, we will close out the show.
John. On January 27th, we step into the ring in Terre Haute, Indiana at Hybrid Championship Wrestling. And you see, we both have very storied histories in Hybrid Championship Wrestling so far. You're one of the biggest guys. You're one of the guys who has main evented numerous times at HCW. But me, I'm undefeated in singles action, Jeffrey. I have defeated Kendall Fire, Dale Patricks, Jason Levi. You name them, I've put everyone down that HCW has put before me, and now you are standing before me. You see, Jeffrey, this ancient book is storied, all of its history, all of its grandeur. And I have all the knowledge of it inside of my brain. And Jeffrey, you're a fantastic wrestler. You travel all over. You get the big matches. You're going to the UK in March. I understand that. I understand why some people might think you might mop the floor with me, but you see, Jeffrey, what you don't have is my brain. What you don't have is my capacity to win. And Jeffrey, when we step into the ring on January 27th, I have no doubt that it'll be match of the night. I have no doubt that we're going to kill each other. But at the end of the night, what will matter is the winner. You can have your 7-star matches. You can come out and you can have your memorable moments. You can do your dives off the top rope. But when we step into the ring, what's going to matter is who came out the winner. And it's going to be me, Mr. By the Book, Gaston LaRue. And when I win, it will be by the book. Dion Freeman. Welcome to the LaRue Library, where I hold all of the knowledge of professional wrestling at my grasps. But today I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit to you, Dion. At the last World's Finest Wrestling show in October, you destroyed your opponent in quick and easy fashion. But I'm here to tell you that it's not going to be that easy when you step in the ring with Mr. By the Book, Gaston LaRue. And here's why. It's because you're going to be stepping into the ring with a man who is a 3-time heavyweight champion. You're going to step into the ring with a man who is the winner of the Hoosier Wrestling Alliance match of the year. You're going to step into the ring with a man, a walking embodiment of the ancient book of wrestling, the whole knowledge of professional wrestling inside and out through all of history and all of time. And Dion, when I beat you, there's no reason to be sad, because there's nothing to be ashamed of, because you're going to lose 100% by the book.
And we're back. And guys, thank you for joining, and thank you for joining, Keith. And thank you all listening at home. Keith, is there anything you want to say before we close out? Is there any stories you want to share? Anything before we close out the show?
Sure. We briefly touched on it, but Shield Wall and the Bruisers are going to beat the living crap out of each other on the 28th. And people should definitely come see that. There's other stuff going on, but I think that Shield Wall and Bruiser match is going to be insane. Apollo Star is teaming with Cassius Star, his son, I believe, for the first time, and they're wrestling Bryant Huff and Johnny Cisco.
That'll be good.
Rodney Rush. Yeah, that's going to be really good. I'm looking forward to that. Lots of good technical wrestling and high flying. I mean, those four guys, it's going to be cool. So, the tickets are $10. You can check us out on Facebook, World's Finest Wrestling. And it's in Connorsville, Indiana, at the Boys and Girls Club. Doors open 6:30, bell time 7:30. And you should definitely come check it out, so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Keith, for joining me. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast. You're the first promoter on the podcast.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
No problem, man. Thank you guys for listening, and remember to do everything 100% by the book.